James Harrington lifted the crystal flute of cranberry juice to his lips. His tailored tuxedo pressed perfectly against his frame. The grand ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers, threads of conversation weaving through the air like silken ribbons. He paused mid-sip when a small hand tugged at the silk cuff of his sleeve. He turned to find a young boy no older than 8, his dark eyes wide with urgency. The boy's crisp white shirt was stained with a faint smudge of tomato sauce from earlier kitchen duties, but his posture was regal, unwavering. "Sir, she put something in your juice," the boy whispered, voice trembling yet determined. James blinked. The flute paused at his lips, crystal catching the light. He searched the boy's face for signs of jest or mistake. The boy shook his head, curls bouncing. Around them, laughter, and music continued, oblivious. A woman in a sapphire gown glided past, smiling at James with practiced charm, hand poised to reach for the flute. Malik, the boy, had been working as an errand runner for the event catering staff. Orphaned at 6, he'd found sanctuary in the kitchen of Harrington Estates, where the cooks treated him like family. His duties were simple: clear plates, fetch trays, but his eyes absorbed everything. He'd noticed the woman in blue hovering by the refreshment table, whispering into the ear of the head mixologist. He'd seen her slip something small into a slender vial and later watch as the mixologist poured the contents into James's glass. James set the flute down gently on the silver tray held by a passing attendant. He crouched to meet Malik's eyes. "Are you sure?" he asked, tone low. Malik nodded, voice quivering. "I saw it with my own eyes. I tried to stop her, but the chef called me away." James stood, heart pounding. The ambient music felt distant, muffled by the rush of adrenaline. He scanned the crowd for the woman in the sapphire gown. She seemed to dance through the sea of guests, effortless, elegant, innocent. He reached out, taking Malik's small hand in his gloved palm. "Stay close," he murmured. Together they moved toward the refreshment table. James's mind raced. This gala marked his launch of the Harrington Foundation, years of work culminating in tonight's unveiling. He could not afford scandal, but his life was more precious. He scanned the bartender discreetly, noting a trembling hand and eyes cast downward. The mixologist caught his gaze and paled. "Everything okay, Mr. Harrington?" the bartender asked, voice cracking. James inclined his head toward the flute. "A guest reported something unsettling. Could you pour this out?" The bartender swallowed, eyes darting toward the woman in blue who now watched them with thinly masked contempt. He reached for the tray, but as he did, a waiter rushed past, nearly colliding with Malik. James steadied the boy, then turned to the mixologist. "How long ago did you prepare this drink?" The mixologist swallowed again, wiping sweat from his brow. "Less than 5 minutes, sir, she insisted. Said it was an urgent favor." His voice trembled. James discreetly exchanged a look with Malik, who gave him a solemn nod. He raised his voice slightly to be heard over the music. "Clear the table and replace every drink. Alert security." A hush rippled through the nearby guests as waiters scurried. From across the room, the woman in blue's lips tightened. She turned on her heel and slipped away, her sapphire gown trailing like a dark river. James remained calm, signaled a burly security guard. "Find her," he said quietly. The guard nodded and pushed through guests. Meanwhile, James knelt beside Malik. "You did the right thing," he murmured. "Thank you." Malik's eyes brimmed. "I just want everyone to be safe," he whispered. Word spread quickly among the staff. Glasses were collected, poured out, and replaced. The band's tempo slowed for an interlude, the conductor glancing around in confusion. Guests murmured among themselves, sensing a shift. James rose, straightened his bow tie, and stepped onto the small dais where a podium awaited. Flashbulbs popped as photographers jostled. He tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice steady. "My apologies for the interruption. I have just been informed of a potential hazard involving our refreshments. For your safety, we will be pausing for a brief moment while we ensure everything is in order." A ripple of relieved applause met his announcement. He allowed himself a small smile, then nodded to security to continue their search. Outside the ballroom doors, the woman in blue moved quickly down a marble corridor. Her heels clicked, echoing against the walls. She paused at an alcove, glanced over her shoulder, and took a deep breath. Her fingers brushed a sapphire pendant at her throat, a gift from James after their brief but intense courtship months earlier. A gift she now resented deeply. She had planned revenge, convinced that ending his legacy would heal her wounded pride. Security guard Ruiz spotted her at the corridor's end and blocked her path. "Excuse me, ma'am, could I have a word?" he asked, voice firm. She plastered a mask of innocence on her face. "Of course," she cooed, voice honeyed. Ruiz glanced at her eyes, narrowing. "You were seen near the refreshment table. Would you mind coming with me for a quick security check?" The woman's lips curved. "Certainly," she said. She followed him back toward the ballroom. Inside, Malik hovered near the edge of the dais, clutching the small silver tray he'd carried earlier. James descended the steps, wiping a bead of sweat from his temple. He stopped beside Malik and crouched. "Stay here with Mrs. Ortega," he said, nodding toward the event coordinator. "I'll handle this." Mrs. Ortega beckoned Malik behind a velvet rope. He obeyed, glancing back at James. By the refreshment table, Ruiz guided the woman in blue to a waiting officer. "Please empty your pockets," he said. She complied, stepping back gracefully as the officer patted her down. At her hem, he felt a small vial. He held it up. "What's this?" he asked. Her mouth opened in surprise, eyes widening. James approached, face grave. "That's the vial," he said quietly. "Thank you." The woman's composure faltered. She crumpled the mask of innocence. "You ruined everything," she hissed at James. Security closed in. James's heart ached. This was once the woman he'd admired, believed in. But her betrayal burned too hot to forgive now. She was escorted away in handcuffs, her sapphire pendant left behind on the marble floor. Guests murmured, some horrified, some relieved. The band resumed, hesitant at first, then with renewed vigor. James returned to the dais and tapped the microphone again. "The issue has been resolved. We apologize for the scare. Let us continue celebrating tonight's achievements." Applause swelled, and glasses clinked once more with safe, untouched juice. Later, after the gala, James found Malik waiting by the grand staircase, now empty of guests. The chandeliers dimmed. Malik's eyes shone with pride and exhaustion. James knelt again. "Thank you, Malik, you saved me tonight." The boy's cheeks flushed. "I'm just glad everyone's okay." James placed a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder. "You have courage beyond your years. I'd like to offer you a permanent place at the foundation. Scholarship, room, board, anything you need." Malik's jaw dropped. "Me, sir?" James nodded. "You're part of the team now. And tonight you helped save more than just a glass of juice. You showed integrity." Malik's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Thank you," he whispered. James rose and offered his arm. Together they walked toward the service exit. Outside, the humid night air of the city wrapped around them. James glanced at the sky, stars faint behind urban glow. "Let's get you home," he said. Malik nodded, head buzzing with excitement and relief. They stepped into the awaiting car, the engine's purr a soothing counterpoint to the events of the evening. As they drove away, James thought of the woman in sapphire, the thin line between trust and betrayal, and the unexpected hero who stood before him. In that moment, he knew that true wealth was not in fortunes or fame, but in loyalty, courage, and the bonds we forge when it matters most. And for Malik, a new chapter began, one filled with promise, purpose, and the knowledge that sometimes a small voice can change everything.